Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Love is Blind podcast.
Hello and welcome. Yes, we are back to review episode 8. The episode is titled
Love is a Battlefield.
And the description is...
After dramatic meltdowns at the Pod Squad gathering, the couples process the aftermath. Meetings with parents lead to tears and tough conversations. Oh, don't they really?
They sure do. They sure do. I'm realizing before we dive in, I want to issue an apology that these episodes are a couple days after, or these episodes of our podcast are a couple days after the episodes of the show have been coming out. We were gone this weekend.
Yes, we were away. But we are here now, and we're going to cover episode 8, and then 9 will be coming out shortly on this one's coattails. Is that the expression?
Soon. It'll come out soon.
It will come out.
All right. We're working on it. And also, thank you. Someone reached out and said that it was difficult to hear me in particular. So first of all, thank you for that feedback. Totally welcome that as we're getting this podcast off the ground.
I believe it was Natasha. The chat has disappeared, but I believe it was Natasha who said that. So thank you, Natasha, for that. And yeah.
Yeah. So I will do my best to speak closer to the mic. But in general, we love this show, obviously. And we love sharing what we think and also hearing what you think. So if you want to contribute and have your own thoughts, think we didn't quite get it right, or want to enthusiastically support what we're saying, then please reach out.
Yes, and you can find us on Instagram at Love is Blind Podcast, and you can also find our Facebook page, Love is Blind Podcast. So, reach out to us, join us there. Please also follow along on your favorite podcasting platform. It really helps to get more ears on our podcast. So, and we love interacting with our community here. So, if you guys want to reach out, chat, tell us your thoughts about our thoughts, or if you want to tell us any other things that we can improve, we would love to hear that from you. And it's been really great so far getting to see how many people are listening to this, and it's awesome to have what feels like a connection with a lot of people around the world.
We see you.
We see you.
We are you.
Right. So without further ado, we're going to jump into episode 8.
Yes.
Love is a Battlefield. Now, we ended episode 7 with the Pod Squad gathering.
Yeah.
Specifically,
Pod
we
Squad
were...
gathering.
Oh, yeah. We had Uche essentially just yelling at Lydia. Is that what we're calling what that was?
Really because upset, and she left, and she wanted Milton to come with, and I just right off the bat, this episode and episode 9, I really acutely felt the lack of couples. That we only had 2 couples is starting to really show, because we're focusing on them both so intensely, and also the Pod Squad gathering got a lot of airtime, and maybe it would have anyway, but I can't help but feel that everything is just getting a little bit more drawn out because they just need content.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so there's a bit of like, even the editors are like, we give up, man, we're out. Like, we don't know what to do.
Just let's do more of these guys.
Yeah, they got, this one's got their age thing. This one's got their class thing. And I guess that's what we do and whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just my overall rant. I can't promise that won't come up again, but it might be a thing. Yeah, were you feeling that too?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. We're getting a lot of focus, and I mean, the other thing. This will come up certainly throughout this episode, but maybe it's me. But this season, people feel really nasty to each other. Like they're really not kind to each other in any way. I mean, I keep bumping into this thing where both I think the editors and the show are trying to make it in some cases like, oh, this person's like a good person and this person is like wrong, or but what I'm kind of starting to see is that there's just a lot of people with flaws, because all of us have flaws, bumping up against each other, and nobody's really like coming out looking particularly rosy in this whole situation. Everybody is bumping up against each other in not nice ways. And they're in some cases going out of their way to be nasty, which is not cool. I'm looking at you, Izzy. But yeah,
and Stacy. I agree with that, and I also have a general comment that it feels like between episodes 4 and 5 there was a different directing, editing choice made on the couples, and I feel that same way between episodes 7 and 8. It's like the dynamics have completely changed in all of the couples, and so I'm very aware that we are seeing a heavily edited version of these people's reality.
That certainly seems to be the case with this first scene where we see Uche and Milton talking. And the reason I say it seems to be like that is because at one point they kind of like leave. So like Milton leaves, and then maybe a few minutes later, we are returned to them sitting back on here. It's made to seem as though like some time has passed between them. But like they're in the exact same positions. Like you can't tell me that like they were talking, then they left, and then they came back and sat in the exact same spot. And just like again, it's one of those things where like editing is like they're trying to tell us a story. But this scene is
As a reminder, the episode starts with Uche and Milton conversing.
Right.
Yeah.
Uche and Milton conversing, and specifically Uche just kind of being like, here's the kind of person that you are getting into. Also, don't want to affect your relationship, but she's a terrible person. And it is like, he is so nasty about it. He's like, like trying to say like Milton's my friend and I'm trying to like defend him. And I'm like, what's your interest in? What are you doing? And he like, like once again kind of brings up a bunch of things about Lydia and like specifically he brings up this thing where he's just kind of like, I know that Lydia knew I was coming on the show. And I was like, is this actual information? Because like not that long ago you were saying, I think Lydia knew about it. And now he's saying like, I know she knew about it. And it just seems like he's very specifically trying to like change Milton's mind about things while also being like, I totally don't want to change anything about you, about your guys' relationship. Lydia shows up, tries to take Milton away. Milton's like, no, I want to talk. And then like Uche is doing this like, don't let her control you. Just like this weird, like, why are you trying to get into this relationship? And again, I'm not saying that anybody's coming out looking great here. I mean, Milton's doing fine. I think Milton is just trying to be like real neutral about it. Milton's trying to be real neutral about it. But like, nobody's looking great here. But also, why are you doing this, Uche? What do you need to do this? What's your deal?
Yeah, because Uche's, I'm not gonna listen. I'm a therapist, and so I have to be careful about what I say because I do not want anything to come out as a diagnosis. So I am holding back, but I am definitely picking up on things about Uche. I think a lot of people are picking up on things about Uche, and this scene doesn't do him any favors. I am so frustrated that he's still showing up in this episode. I thought we were done with him, and this is why I wish we had more couples. I don't want to hear about Uche ever again.
And
at all.
Continuing on Uche.
Yeah. Well, but exactly what you described in that dynamic with Milton is he's trying to rock the boat. He's trying to get Milton to question his relationship with Lydia. And when Milton pushes back, then Uche gets stronger and stronger in what he says. He's not okay with someone having a reality inconsistent with his own.
Yeah.
And that he shuts down everybody in conversation when they try to challenge him.
Oh, yeah. When he goes back to the group and the women are all essentially pushing back on him and they're just kind of like, no, you are the asshole. Like you are. And then he's,
He's telling people to stop. People are pushing back on him. Then he leaves. He did this exact same thing with Aaliyah. Mm-hmm. Right? And I'm sure he did this with Lydia in that scene that we saw. I'm sure he did this in their relationship. He is not okay with realities that are not his own. And we get it. All right, editors, heard. All right, this guy blows, right? What do you want?
Yeah.
Like, stop showing him to me. I don't want to hear about him anymore.
I do have to say, really, really loving Miriam's energy
Yes,
here. Miriam
totally.
just like calling him out,
Yeah.
bitter and fake. You're so pathetic. Like, just like, ooh. I was like snapping my fingers, really excited. Also, the whole like Uche turning around and like attacking her, being like, "Do you have a job? Do you not have a job?" Look, I agree. We both kind of
That was
mocked her a
sketch.
little bit. I don't mean to
That
say
did
mock,
leave
but we
room for
kind of did, like the
ambiguity.
way that she stated what her job was a little weird.
Scientists plus not. Dermatologist maybe. Yeah. I mean, that was, weird. Yeah.
But at the same time, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Uche, back off.
That he's just going to look. It's like, why did you come there that night, man? You know? And
just to start.
yeah. Can you
drama.
imagine being an employee for him at his software company? What a horrible job that must be.
Yeah.
When the recession is over, please, people, find new jobs. You don't need this person in your life. Yeah, but then we have, can we? We could keep going on about Uche, but I kind of don't want to. It doesn't make me feel good.
I mean, we do get a little bit of Milton and Lydia, with Milton like always seeming to like be talking about other things, including pissing. He's like,
a lot
you should.
about his peeing and pooping.
We in this single party, because there was also in the same party where he was like, I was taking a piss in the urinal, and I was like, why are you being so specific? And now he's like, you should have seen this piss I took. It took about 20 minutes. I'm like, what's your deal, man?
He's got, hey, we all got to be proud about something. I think there was a time that he came back to the group too, and he was like, can't a man go take a piss?
Yeah. And like for better or worse, like, I mean, I think Milton, like both in the way he's describing, like, like we're all different parallels. I'm the X, you're the Y. I'm like, I think he's approaching it in the right way of just kind of like, everybody's got their own perspective, and I'm not going to engage with this.
I also do think though that he's in a bit of a dissociative response. I think he's in a little bit of freeze mode and is like, okay, I'm just going to kind of do this thing and a little bit of comic relief, just try to get out of this conversation by deflecting to talking about pee. But, I also get it, because this seems like the worst party in the world. Mm-hmm. It seems like some horrible party that maybe I would need to like go to Chili's after or something, just have something comforting.
Yeah.
Because my soul would need that.
Yeah. We get more of Uche and Milton coming back together.
This scene goes on forever. Y'all know. Right?
Yeah, and I think again, Milton being real neutral, simultaneously listening to Uche, which I don't think he needs to do, and also just kind of being like, yeah, but I don't think, I think that's how you feel about it. That's not how I feel about it. That's not how Lydia feels about it. You can have your own opinion. That's not affecting like my opinion about things. And I'm like, okay, that's actually admirable. And then Uche, who was like, I don't want to affect any of this, but by the way, don't you think that maybe you're just like, you're in a honeymoon phase, and that like you guys are totally going to fall apart later? I'm like, you're not trying to affect anything, right?
Yeah.
Totally.
Right.
Totally, Uche.
Yep. Aaliyah girl, don't go back. Yeah. And then, yeah. Out of the frying pan, maybe into the fire. I don't know which is worse. Okay, I definitely think Uche's worse, but not far on its heels is the interaction with Izzy and Chris Fox and Johnny and Stacy.
And again, Izzy's actually, I mean, he's pulling almost the exact same move of being like, I think you guys are cool, but I don't want you, my best friend who I've known for 10 days, to get hurt. And I'm like, what is your interest here? Why are you trying to like hurt other people with what your opinion is? I've seen the discussion online. Not a lot of people are fans of Johnny. I understand that there was some dissembling between like some of the things that she said to Chris versus Izzy. At the same time, like, what are you doing, Izzy? Just mind your
Yeah.
own goddamn business. Just move on. Just move on.
Right.
And then, Stacy joins the conversation, and then a little bit later, Johnny joins, and it's just like, it's just ugly. It's,
Yeah.
they're just
Painful to watch.
It's really cringeworthy, and yeah, you know what? If Johnny and Chris are
Can we
happy,
just go
let them
back to
be.
season 4.
Yeah, okay.
Remember season
back to
4? Season 4 was a great season. Yeah, season 5.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
We do have,
Yeah.
Johnny and Stacy kind of debating about like who saw Izzy first, like who,
Yeah.
you didn't tell me it was him. Well, that's not him. Like, and then Stacy being kind of aggressive, being like, "Why didn't you propose?" And Johnny honestly kind of owning up and being like, "Yeah, I went to my I went to my backup, kind of. I went to my second
Right,
choice. I didn't go
right.
for the person that I was initially going for." And yes,
she's not lying here. Yeah.
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 I don't know if she.
Izzy says that she said that she loved him 4 times and asked him to be her boyfriend, and she doesn't deny that she asked him to be her boyfriend, but she doesn't. Or no, she doesn't. She doesn't deny that she asked her.
Yeah.
God. She owns up that she asked him to be, or said she loved him. Good Lord.
One of those two.
One of those she owns up to. She doesn't say that she asked him.
She says that I didn't ask you to be my boyfriend, but she.
Feel free to comment which one is. She's not totally lying, okay? That's the point I'm making.
She shot her shot.
Yeah,
she shot
did.
her shot.
And
Netflix.
she did change what she said from one to the other. That was not an awesome move. That was kind of a crappy move, but that's what happened. It's not like she lied about that, because she told them inconsistent stories. She's no angel, all right?
Yeah.
But what I don't understand is like, why are Izzy and Stacy so focused on it?
Yeah.
It's like, I think it's because they're actually not strong in their own relationship.
Oh no,
And-
exactly. They're insecure and they're trying to make
Yeah.
their. And honestly, I like the fact that Stacy then calls his bullshit
Yeah.
to sort of be like, why is it that every time you try to like strengthen our like raise up our relationship, you're doing it by like shooting other people down.
Yeah.
You're saying like, I'm so lucky to be with you and not the other people.
they're strong when they're against others. Yeah.
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 I-
Which, by the way, can we get like a Best Supporting Actress award for Renee? She's like consistently throughout this season.
She's just around.
Always there. Like always in these dramatic scenes. Yeah. I just appreciate Renee. Stacy, I got a different read on the Stacy calling Izzy out on that. I think for me it was like, yes, what she's saying is true, but she was saying it in the moment that she said it because she was actually just trying to she's not happy with Izzy. I think fundamentally
Yeah.
she thinks that she could do better than Izzy, and is
yes.
trying to find
A reason.
reasons. Yeah. And that's going to continue to be a problem. It's like,
yeah.
she keeps thinking she's got a lot of guards up. We've known this about her. This came up in the pods a lot. She is very avoidant and just wants things to be fun and free, and fancy, and anything that's not that, she starts to have a real problem with. And I don't think fundamentally that Izzy wants that. Izzy, I think, enjoys that fun side, but Izzy's like, he's got, again, all of that attachment wounding. He's got a lot of stuff that he doesn't feel comfortable with himself. We've commented a lot on the show that he seems to be slur drunk a lot. And
I mean, in the scenes that
in the
these
scenes
dramatic
that
scenes
right,
that
these
are
dramatic
that-
scenes. Yeah, we don't know what he's like all the time, but of course, but like in a lot of these scenes, there's that. But I've also just noticed that whenever he's in an emotional space, his voice starts to slur too, and it's like that stuff just overwhelms his system, and he wants someone who can hold that for him. I don't think Stacy is necessarily that person for them. I think she has glimpses, but he's an emotional dude. Isn't he? An emotional dude who is really split in himself between the, like, you know, macho buff guy who's like probably wheeling and dealing. I'm snapping. That's what that sound was. They're like wheeling and dealing. He's an insurance agent now. He's like making a life for himself. He's got all this stuff. He's got like the lost and found. He's like, you know, got some machismo or something going on. But inside he's like really sensitive. And I don't think he knows how to merge those two realities for himself. And so it keeps coming up against this place where when they start to get close, when he starts to be seen, it feels really uncomfortable for him. So he has to deflect again and again and again. And the deflection to Johnny and Chris is just yet another example of this. I think Stacey and Izzy both have this tactic that they don't know what's really going on for them. And so they deflect to something else. And we see it play out a lot in this episode.
Mm-hmm. And so our next scene after this pod gathering, we go to Izzy and Stacy in their apartment, where you can see this dynamic that you're literally just talking about kind of playing out. His, you know, on the one hand, reminding us for the probably like the fourth or fifth time in this episode and the next one that he wants to get her flowers every week. And then, you know, Stacy kind of being like, you know, I don't understand exactly what you were trying to do. And he was like, oh, I'm trying to defend Chris because he's a good guy. And she's like, he doesn't seem like he wants to be defended. He was coming at you. And why do you care about what they're doing? Like, why do you care about them? What are you trying to accomplish in this? And I think that it is coming from that place that you're describing, where he's just kind of simultaneously trying to be macho, and at the same time he's kind of like hurt about the thing with Johnny in some way. I think there's still a weird regret that he's like fighting by just being aggressive. I think he's trying to prove to himself, like, I made the right choice, and I'm going to like prove that I made the right choice by making her feel like crap. And just making, like, just in my mind, I'm going to make her be like this awful, awful person. And I'm going to like enhance that by also breaking up her relationship.
Right. Yeah. Splitting and projecting, y'all.
Yeah.
That he's, yes, because a part of him, I think still, like you're saying, I think he really felt seen with Johnny, and it brings up something in him to experience being close to her, and that's not tolerable for him. So she's got to become all bad and Stacy all good, and it's a classic defense mechanism. But yes, I think you are right about that. So we see this play out. They, you know, have some kind of conflict about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the conflict begins first of all, he's like saying how like it turns him on to see Stacy yelling at Johnny, which is wild. And then we get into this thing where Stacy keeps interrupting him, and she's like, I'm interrupting you to comment on the things that you're talking about. And I'm like, whoa. They get into these like weird, like, this is not the first time, you know, we've heard Izzy kind of talk about how he feels it like interrupted, a little bit railroaded, but it is it's this point where Stacy kind of makes the idea of like, you're always talking about how we're a strong couple, but it seems like passionate only when you're in conflict with other people. And then, it's a weird beginning to a fight, but obviously he's a little bit drunk. I don't know how Stacy's doing, but he's clearly like at that like blurry eyed, and you know, kind of Stacy starts to attack him and saying like, you aren't doing that much for me. You know, you're not accomplishing as much as I would want somebody to accomplish for me. Also, we get the introduction of the phrase pod chick. As he calls Johnny a pod chick.
Is this the scene where she says, "You haven't cooked for me yet"?
I think this is, yeah.
Yeah.
Because she starts saying that, like, you don't do, like, because she calls Izzy out and is like, you said that you would do all of these things for me, and then, like, you have yet to do any of these things for me. And Izzy's like, what have I not done for you? And she's like, cook for me. He's like, okay, besides cooking, because what else is there? And, you know, they get into this argument where I feel like Izzy is feeling unappreciated for the things that he is doing. And at the same time, look, I'm having a hard time having sympathy for him given the scene that he just came from where he was just like yelling at somebody. And it seemingly as a way of like strengthening his relationship with Stacy, and like he seems to be interested in that. But yeah, we see Izzy kind of break down and kind of walk away from this, and like obviously he's had his feelings hurt by feeling as though like the things that he's doing that he feels that he's trying are not enough for Stacy, and he goes into the closet and hides himself in there for a while. And I don't think really Stacy really knows how to handle this.
This is not the first time that's happened for her, where it's like she's afraid of showing empathy because she doesn't know how to also make her position known. You know, that this came up when they had that conflict about his apartment too. Yeah. And the dishware, and it could have easily been resolved by them both being like, hey, let's slow down and think about, I actually want to hear you and you hear me, and let's come to it. But they just both get in their own defenses because, again, they both have that same tactic of jumping out of their own discomfort by deflecting. And so when you see that interact with each other, it just leads to them both deflecting onto the other. Like, you know, find the one at fault is the dynamic that they jump into, and it's not a good dynamic. But you know, they both have a lot to work on. They remind me of Daphne and whatever her partner Cameron, I think, was from White Lotus season 2, where they both bond over like their shared dysfunction. And that's absolutely a dynamic that exists for couples. So that might lead to them saying yes at the altar, but it's not the dynamic that I'd like for any of our listeners on the show. So then, yes, we then jump over to Lydia and Milton processing what happened. Yeah.
And Milton just kind of saying like, hey, I'm the unemotional guy. You're more emotional. I wish you would respond more like the way I do. Which I think that Lydia did kind of walk away from the situation. I you know, there's a little bit of cross wiring here because Milton's like, why didn't you just leave? And she didn't just leave because Milton didn't come. So, but ultimately, I think, you know, Lydia was fine just trying to like get out of the situation, and like she has every single right to just say like, you know what, I'm done. I don't need you to like talk at me and tell me what you think, that, you know, like accuse me like on camera about something like the way that you're seeing things. Like I'm done with you. And they, you know, seemingly this conversation with Lydia and Milton goes fairly well, you know.
That Milton really supported her and really stood up for her, and she's appreciative of that, and that's awesome. Milton also doesn't talk about peeing in this scene, so that's a win. I really appreciated that reconnection scene. It made me feel like if I can imagine being Lydia in that scene, it would just feel so incredibly good to be that supported like that, and it made me believe in them more.
I will say, and this is just something that I noticed. Milton doesn't, when Uche was there, Milton doesn't actually take Lydia side, and like he's just kind of like, you both have your own viewpoint. Like he doesn't like it, which is an interesting way of kind of like dealing with this conflict. Because he doesn't just go like, "Hey, Uche, shut up. We're leaving. I don't care what you're saying." He's just kind of like, "Yeah, you can believe what you believe. Lydia believes what she believes, and that's fine."
Yeah, again, I think that's his dissociative response, which, there's a scene between them later that maybe I'll talk about that more, and that might be the next episode. But it's a good scene, and I appreciated it. Then we jump back to Stacy, who's teaching a Pilates class that I have to say had to have been cast. Like, this is the hottest Pilates class I've ever seen. I was like, man, all right, bring it, Houston. So I was like, this is obviously like she's recording this for this show, right?
Yeah. Also, okay, there's something about the fact that her title continues to be operations manager, where
right.
Like the entire time I was like, what operations? So like when you see that she's a Pilates instructor, okay, I get it. Maybe that is the title that she has is operations manager, but I don't know if that fully describes what she does.
Yeah.
Again, no shade on a Pilates instructor, but I feel like it was a choice to kind of say like
Raven from season 3 was a Pilates instructor.
Yeah, just say what you're doing.
Just say you're a Pilates instructor.
Yeah, we're not going to get mad at you. We're not going to like judge. Just say what you do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But also, like, of course she's a Pilates instructor. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Stacy is like very many people I went to high school with. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, I know you, and like...
Yeah.
It could be very great people. I was very much a nerd, so I have feelings about that. But she just, she's kind of a bully. She's very into her appearance. She was, probably a type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then Izzy comes to visit her at work.
Andre's like, before you alienate all of our viewers, let's go to Izzy.
Yeah.
Thanks, babe.
If you went to high school with Allie, no, I'm kidding.
Thanks for saving me from me. Izzy comes in.
Izzy comes in, and he's got some conversation and a plunger.
Yeah, right. It's a sweet gift.
It is a sweet gift. It's a sweet thought, and he's not
apologizing.
Well, he's not just apologizing, but he's also kind of saying like, here's how you kind of made me feel.
Yeah, totally.
And
he's olive branching, I mean to say. Yeah.
Yeah. He's making moves. He continues to kind of like say like, hey, are we gonna fight for each other or not? And I honestly, I didn't know how Stacy was going to respond, if I'm honest. I truly didn't know whether she was going to be like, yeah, not enough, but ultimately I feel like I do feel like she kind of accepts it. It is interesting how she says all of the things that I do for you, I want reciprocated. And as far as I know, have we seen? I mean, I think she mentioned that she cooked dinner for him
twice.
Yes, but she's like, whatever I have like set up for you. I'm like, are there other things that are happening, or are these things that she's like, if I were to do something for you, I want that reciprocated. I am curious whether she has actually like done things for him. Anyway. Yeah. But yeah, he brings this like kind of adorable gift of a inscribed plunger, and they reassure each other, and for the most part they seem to be moving in a good direction.
There are ways in which they're a good couple. Yeah, like they have those moments of sincere connection. And there's also ways in which they're not. Stacy, I don't think is going to be able to really get over the fact that he doesn't make as much money as she would like him to. And to me, that was the basic underpinning of this, of this dynamic, is it was about you don't do these things for me. But I think on a fundamental level, she doesn't think he's enough for her. And she's being a bit of, she's going into the pursuer stance of like, can I rely on you? Right? There's positional modes that we get into a relationship, and withdrawer tends to default to I'm not good enough, and pursuer tends to default to I'm all alone. And that's definitely coming up in their dynamic. So I think that's part of it, but I also think that she is on the verge of marrying. He's not who she thought she would be marrying, and
yeah,
it's uncomfortable for her to own that in herself, so she's trying to figure out the ways that he's not getting it right.
Yeah, definitely. We have a brief scene between Milton and Lydia where Lydia seems to kind of be rejecting Milton's offer of some food, just kind of like in a not particularly nice way.
It's a true there's two couples moment.
Yeah. I mean, we're
the episode. We're getting a lot of B-roll.
We're going to keep going. Like, it is funny because there's two couples and like, and now we're back to them, and now we're back to them, and because like that's what we have.
That's all we have. Yeah.
That's all we have, and we then go back to Izzy, who is having his mom coming by, and she's going to meet Stacy. Mom is clearly, trying to look out for her son, and is like worried about the, probably the speeds, as always, as almost every parent is on the show. They're a little bit worried about the speed at which things are moving, and the fact that they haven't really had time, and the idea that like this is this if you're making this choice, it's a final choice, and yeah. It is funny to me how often people are just kind of like, if we made this choice and that was it, then there's nothing we can do about it. And we continue to live in a country where the divorce rate is like 2/3 of people. I don't know. Anyway,
on the whole, though, I think the scene goes well. I think we see a mom who's concerned but fundamentally wanting to accept her son. And Stacy, to her credit, if I were meeting someone's mom and got a bit of pushback to my face, I'd probably have some feelings come up around it. And I'm, you can tell she does, but she handles it well, right? Like, it's a pretty non-defensive response on the whole.
Yeah, and she kind of even puts it. She's like, I don't think I can sell you on myself, like being like the ideal partner for your son. I can't say that, but here's how I feel right now. And I think that ultimately she makes a good case for them, especially given the things that they've been going through. She makes a good case for why they are doing well as a couple and why they should be moving forward. And honestly, it might have been the best I've seen them, like the best I've seen this kind of like relationship described in some ways, right? Like that they're a good couple. Oh, I did forget to mention, do you remember? This might be at the end of the scene, but when Izzy hugs his mom, what
a hug!
What a wild way to hug! And it's towards. I think it's towards the end of the scene. Maybe he just like collapses on top of his mom on the couch in the weirdest way.
Yeah. He's like planking.
I was like, yeah. What a.
And they pan out to it. Yeah. I had looked away, and Andre actually rewound the clip so that I could see this.
This is like the kind of hug I might give you. This is the kind of hug.
I don't even know if you would give me that type of hug. That'd be a hug you gave me as a joke.
Just like falling on top of you on a couch.
Fade into you. Yeah, that was quite the hug. But Izzy and Stacy are very united and strong when they're facing a third party. And in this case, it was the mom, which they're very strong when they're explaining themselves to others. It's just when it's the two of them, they're not so good.
Yeah, definitely.
Speaking of family meetings, we come to Lydia meeting Milton's family.
And this was interesting.
Just give me your thoughts, Andre.
I've never felt so much. I mean, they're making the point too, because I was like, this feels like a job interview, and then they're like, marriage is like a business like decision. I was like, okay, well, I see how this family behaves, and I can certainly see where Milton came from. Just like this
Dissociative,
just kind of emotionless family. Look, I don't like. It sounds mean to say it, but they kind of are. They're weird and seemingly distant from everybody. There's like these like
I think they're very formal.
They're very formal, and there's a lot of kind of
yeah.
And
there's definitely like a guilty until proven innocent. My overall take on this scene was that Lydia was actually doing a really great job of answering the questions authentically and as with as good of an answer as you can expect. But her family his family just doesn't like this. And so it's like you could see that their complaints against her just got more and more situational. Like there was nothing she was going to say that was going to be right. When she was answering the questions well, it was too scripted. Right?
And that was weird, is that they did have this, like, that was the kind of the running thing, was like, this is phony, this is scripted, you are repeating lines, you're not, like, being honest, and it's really strange to me, because I don't exactly know what they're looking for from her. Like, whether they're just, like, kind of reading into the way she's acting in some way, but, like... Yeah, it is the dynamic between Milton's mom and sister and Lydia is very tense.
They're very protective of Milton. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We do get to see Milton at one point what savage camera work that there's a camera person just being like, oh, okay, Milton's trying to take off the cork of a bottle. Let's just pan to him. Is there an important conversation happening? Yes. Look at no.
It's a big meanwhile moment.
And like the music kind of goes like, bom, 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 like just like silly little music. Like, look at how this like silly little guy can't take the cork. Like,
what are you doing with my son?
The contrast between the conversation and him trying to remove a cork with his teeth is so funny.
But again, Milton's doing his I'm checked out, right? I mean, I think in his family dynamic, from what we see, he probably did that a lot.
Yeah.
My guess is that he has two very strong women in the family, and with, any strong parental figure and family dynamic in general, he sort of coped by just laying low and doing his own thing.
Yeah.
And that happens. That also shows up in his relationship with Lydia, though, right? Where she wants more from him, and it's hard for him. So that's tough. But yeah, I in general think this went about as well as it could have gone. And
I mean, given who his family is, yes,
his family just doesn't want to like her.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't think they want to like her. I think they don't want to like this experience. I think they're confused by the fact that he's young and seemingly has not really expressed a whole lot about wanting to get married before this. And then there's like the continuation of this disagreement. I don't know. This kind of like continued issue between Lydia and Milton, where she feels like he's not like picking up after himself, and just kind of like... This is going to be a thing that continues to come up. I think when
they ask her, like, is there anything that you don't like? And she says that you're talking about? Yeah.
And it seems to be like between that and then like his feeling that she is like too emotional and volatile. I think that these are things that they continue to kind of like bring up and then brush over, bring up and then brush over, because like it is... They never seem to really resolve it, and it's something that I think is going to be ultimately affect like 100% going to affect their decision on the altar. What they're going to do.
I think Lydia really wants
Yeah.
it to work because she really does want a relationship and Milton's a good guy, but she's having a tough time too.
Yeah.
You know, I also don't think he's what she expected that she'd end up with. But speaking of that question of, is there anything that you find challenging about him? What an impossible question for her. Because if she said nothing, they would have not believed her and thought she was being phony. And then when she shared something that on the whole is like a more innocuous thing, like doesn't clean up after himself, then they grill her on it, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it shows a lot of integrity and grace for Lydia to stay for that long during that.
It's
process.
also
Yeah.
It's also really interesting, this dynamic between Milton and his sister. His sister asks him, "Why are you getting married?" And then he's like, "What an intrusive question." And then she asks it again, and then he deflects once more. And this entire time, Lydia's having a side conversation, but is clearly listening to this, because the moment that conversation ends, she's like, "What did he say?" And then his sister makes up an answer and is like, "He says he loves you." And I'm like, what? This is so uncomfortable. This is really uncomfortable. Yeah.
So,
and even like this is the brother-in-law who then says like, "Oh, I've heard him talk about marriage before. I think, I think he's, this is something that he's wanted to do."
yeah, he's trying. He's like, "I'm going to stand up for you," but it...
Yeah. And then the kind of that scene kind of concludes with Lydia talking privately with Milton's mom and sister.
I would be dreading that conversation. I'd be like, "Oh, I think I'm ill."
Yeah.
No,
it's
I'm getting a headache. I better go.
very much an interview, just like being grilled by them. And they, like both Milton's sister and his mom seem very unconvinced. And they're just kind of like, "Nope, I don't see it in his eyes. I don't see him be excited. And I think you're not it." Which is, what a rough thing to say to somebody who is just like,
rough.
I'm here to marry your son. And they're like, yeah, I don't think you do. I don't think you want to. So what an interesting episode of just difficulties. I think that obviously the dramatic tension that is being set up by the show creators is like, hey, we are coming up to the wedding. This is where we sow doubt. And they do so in this episode. Spoiler, we've already kind of watched the second episode, so we'll talk about that one in a separate episode. But there seems to be the theme here is there's trouble, right? There's trouble
ahead.
Trouble ahead. You don't know how this is going to end. The dramatic tensions are high.
Yes. Both those couples that you weren't rooting for continue to have doubt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Isn't it so weird that like we started this by being like, JP and Taylor, they're great.
Oh, I know. And now they're gone.
Now they're gone.
Yeah. And then it's just sad.
And they weren't great.
In
They
Couple
certainly
Town.
weren't great either.
No. Yeah. It was, nothing's going well. Everything's challenging. I mean, I don't want any of these couples to get married.
Right.
Yeah. My overall take on the Milton family thing was that because they couldn't find a specific reason to like her personally, although they definitely hate the situation, I don't think they hate her personally. I do wonder how much her being Puerto Rican factors into that too, because I feel like that's probably not what they were expecting from Milton.
They do kind of begin by being like, I hear an accent, which was like, ooh, okay, that's a weird thing to begin on. Just, yeah. And then they ask her like a couple of different times, where are you from again?
Yes. Yeah.
Where are you from exactly?
So I definitely think that was a dynamic that was going on in that too.
Yeah.
But it's almost like she wasn't going to do better than that. And she didn't do badly. And as much as she could, they're reassured, even though they still clearly hate this dynamic happening.
Definitely. But
that is episode 8. So we're record episode 9 as soon as we can and get that out to you. In the meantime, I hope that you're doing very many wonderful things with your life, like gardening or cross stitch. Anything but watching more of these couples that we're not rooting for.
I mean, no, we want you to be watching this so that you can then be listening to this
us.
while
Obviously,
doing those amazing other
us.
hobbies.
Sponsor us. But if you if you decide that you want to like take a walk on a beautiful day, just live life, right? Be grateful. Be grateful because you're not on this show.
Be grateful you're not on this show.
Yeah.
And once again,
you.
subscribe to our podcast. Just follow it in Spotify. Hit that little follow button. If you're using, Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, our podcast should now be on all platforms. Look us up and give us a like. Give us a 5-star rating. Just it really helps get our podcast seen. Otherwise, if you even search for our name, sometimes we don't pop up unless we have enough folks kind of listening to us and kind of engaging. So yeah,
help us help you.
Help us so that we can continue to do this. And if we see the support that a lot of people are listening to it, we're going to also potentially do some back seasons. We might do some Love is Blind Brazil, Love is Blind Japan. So
open to it.
If we
let
if we
us
see
know
that there's,
if you want that.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. If we see that there's interest there, we'd love to hear more about it. So yeah, follow us on Instagram at Love is Blind Podcast. Look for us on Facebook at Love is Blind Podcast, and reach out to us. We love you all. Thank you.
See you soon.
Bye.